Are you so ready for a change and would like a little energy and motivation to create a beautiful new life? Well, my name's Sonia Choquette. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the most important skill you need to make your life work in this new world order. One that you have, one that comes naturally to you, but most people have ignored, which is how to energetically sharpen your senses. Develop a keen sense of the energetic obvious and read life accurately so that you can actually stay excited, be motivated, and have a great experience in this new world where you are no longer being that checked out, tuned out, powerless, unconscious self, and you are awake, aware, tuned in, wired in, using all of your senses, and creating a beautiful life with them. We are going to have a fantastic year because we're going to learn some skills in how to be a new human, how to be 5D, how to be more conscious, aware, empowered, and awake. And if you haven't been here before, I'm so excited. I actually believe your spirit brought you here, your own intuition. And we are going to be learning so many useful, empowering skills this year and how to manifest life and check in and tune in and be conscious and be motivated. So thanks and hang in there because let's go. We are going to learn this. So first, let's talk about what is reading life. It's a natural skill. We use that expression all the time. Maybe you do more than you realize. Like I really read what you mean, or I read the room, or he couldn't read the forest for the trees, or read it, read what's happening. I mean, we're constantly using that expression naturally because it is a reflection of a skill that we all do possess, which is to register more than meets the eye. However, to read life accurately starts with registering what meets the eye. Now, let's just get real clear about this. I'm a reader. There are readers in this world. We have either been vilified or put on a pedestal, but we are the people that others have gone to forever since the beginning of time to track what is unpredictable. In fact, you go to a reader to tell me, what do you predict? Because I want to know what's predictable. I want to know what's coming. I want to be prepared. That's the motivation for reading life. Well, it used to be that just us readers were engaged, mostly secretly, but engaged to do that. And we didn't feel like we particularly had to do it ourselves. However, life is so unpredictable now that nobody can afford to check out. We all need to learn how to read life accurately. We can't rely on others to indicate the change of energy and how it's flowing and working while we just stay tuned into our phones and tuned out to the world because we're going to get slammed. So this year, I am really paying attention to how to train you, how to invite you, empower you to use all of your awareness, starting with a keen sense of the obvious, to learn to read life instead of get blindsided by it. So let's start with the basic skills of discernment. I want to talk about reading life first. It doesn't start with going to woo-woo land. It starts with getting into your body and being present. And unfortunately, somewhere in the Middle Ages, the French philosophers decided that anything that wasn't physical and obvious was dismissible, which was crazy and very, very left-brained. But we're learning that was a mistake. We need to be whole brain, but we're not going to dismiss our left brain. It's just not the whole picture, but it is an essential part of the picture, which means keen sense of the obvious. That's what really matters in reading life, is that we use our whole brain, starting with the 5 outer senses. Now, it seems obvious, but that is the place where most people have really fallen off. And you know why? Because they're all tied into their phones and checked out. It's screen checkout. Here's an example of that. I was going from Paris to London the other day because I live between the two cities and frequent that train several times a month. And I was sitting in the waiting area, waiting for the train to be called. There was a guy sitting right next to me who was completely checked out. Headphones on, in his phone, staring deeply. I literally almost tripped over him. He didn't move his feet to allow for me to sit down, or his bags. He couldn't care. He was not on the planet. He was not in his body. Oh, well, no problem for me. But 5 times, a train was announced before my own. 5 times. And he just didn't budge. He didn't budge. And all of a sudden, he jerked up. He looked up and he looked around and he noticed he missed his train. He was so tuned out. He's in the train station. It's early in the morning. He obviously got up to get on a train to get somewhere, and he missed his train because he was so tuned out. He didn't hear the 5 announcements. He didn't see the mass of people exiting toward the train ramp. Where were you? And here was what was really funny. He was pissed. He started yelling at one of the people working there saying, "Why didn't you let me know?" And it's like, what do you mean? 1,000 people just left in front of you. But this is not unusual. This is common. So step 1 of being in the 5D is be present. Put your phone down, put your screen down, and get back in your body. Take a breath and wake up your senses. You know what will help you to be motivated to create is to recognize you need those senses to give you the information and guidance in how to create. So look up, notice details, notice the train is leaving, notice the mass exodus. The second thing, listen. You're tuned out. How many times have you talked to someone and they're like, They didn't hear you. Tuned in people, not only do we listen with our ears, we listen with our whole bodies. We don't just listen to what's being said, we listen to what is meant. We listen to what is unsaid. We listen to the heart of people. We listen to the energy that is, it's sort of like, have you ever felt like they call it the elephant in the room? Well, that's listening to energy, the unsaid, the unnoticed, the unacknowledged. Well, listen to that and you acknowledge it. That's another big one. Here's another one that's really important. Trust your sense of taste. It was really interesting. I was at a dinner the other night, and 2 or 3 times the woman I was having dinner with said, meal doesn't taste right. She said, I don't know, maybe I don't like the flavor, but she wanted to be a nice guest at the dinner. But she said, it doesn't taste right. And she ate it anyway. See, for me, if something didn't taste right, I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't need to explain or get some permission. If it doesn't taste right, you simply say, not for me. Well, she ate it. Sure enough, we heard she got food poisoning. She shouldn't have eaten it. Didn't taste right. I felt bad for her, but 3 or 4 or 5 times she said doesn't taste right, and at least 3 times others said, well, then don't eat it. Just give yourself that permission to trust your actual experience. It's giving you information. I think of another person who was, I was sharing a conversation with. She was in LA, and she said, I smelled something in my apartment. It just didn't smell right. It smelled sweet in a strange way. Bugged me. It wasn't strong, but I looked around. The kitchen was clean. Floor was clean. Nothing was spilled. It smelled sweet. She said, I paid attention. So I Googled sweet smell in the kitchen, a strange sweet smell. And I, to my horror, realized when I read it that it could indicate a wire fire. So she called the fire department. She freaked out and called the fire department. And you know what they said? Good job. You just saved this building from burning down. There was a fire in the wall, and they found it because she smelt it. It was very vague. The fireman said several times, good on you to have smelt this. We know what we're smelling, but if you don't, it's easy to tune out. So let's start with reading a keen sense of the obvious and stop denying it for whatever reasons. I think the biggest reason we deny what we sense is because it could be inconvenient. It was inconvenient at dinner, or so the woman thought. It was inconvenient to say I don't like my meal. She didn't want to be inconvenience someone else to say, take it back. She didn't want to be perceived as finicky or hard to please. So she poisoned herself. I would never do that. Don't do that. Or it was like, okay, smell something. It's inconvenient to call the fire department. It's risky to think that maybe you're overreacting, but then think of the consequences of what if it is a fire? I'm just sitting here because I don't want to call the fire department. Call the fire department. In other words, check in. You have to listen to your body. I will be teaching you lots and lots of skills, but the one we're working on today is keen sense of the obvious. Just stop right now. What can you notice right in front of you that you haven't noticed before? Or how about this one? Just name something, by the way, before I go on. I get so excited, I rush. One thing you haven't noticed before. You know what I noticed? Right outside my window was a big garden. They did a lot of construction, and yesterday, middle of January, well, actually, it's the beginning of January, what I noticed, grass grew back. Where it was all rocks and dirt and mess, beautiful grass is growing. I just noticed that. It was very hopeful and exciting for me. It gave me energy. It brought me back to the garden. It brought me back to that life goes on. So make that a little psychic sit-up, a little exercise. Notice something that you haven't noticed before and don't deny it. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? If you see someone twitching and being weird, pay attention. They're telling you that they're not being honest or they're not reliable or what they're saying isn't something they believe in. Notice. That's a good way to read life, is start with a keen sense of the obvious, because that information informs you on how energy is flowing toward you. We will continue to sharpen that skill as well as develop the skills of the energy flowing from you. When you get those two working in harmony, you become unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable. So this week, let's work on that. If you're new this week, try this. You're going to love it. Start noticing how life is unfolding right before you. Notice. It's an invaluable, important piece of information that will give you the direction to be safe, be grounded, make good decisions, positive connections, be in the flow, make money, get better, get healthier, fall in love, all the good things you're waiting for. Starts with a keen sense of the obvious. Get back in your body. Unplug. Tune in. Pay attention. And if you enjoyed today and you want to stay with us, please hit the notification or subscribe button so you don't miss it. Notice that button. Notice that you came here and got some really useful, supportive information. And I hope that you'll apply it because you'll notice your life will get better right away. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon. See you next week. All my love.